we've got to get beyond this idea that equality means that everybody's literally the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it's just Marxism, to be honest, but it seems so silly that people would even accept something like that. It's a good intellectual exercise to, when you hear a new idea, take it to its most extreme logical conclusion, because that's where it's going to go eventually, right?
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We have a special guest today, Tiffany Smiley. Is that an appropriate name, the last name? Were you morose?
Well, I mean, I have to be happy. I have to smile.
You have to be. Why?
I don't. But it's fitting. It's a good conversation starter. Some people, when I'm checking into a hotel, they're like, "Is that really your name? Are you making it up?" I'm like, "No, it's real." I got to roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be somewhat ironic, I guess, if you just walked around frowning all the time. Before
or
we,
awful teeth or something.
yeah. Before we get into all the things, let's talk about you for a minute. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on a very, very small farm in Eltopia, Washington, in Washington State, kind of in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a desert. We didn't have much, but certainly had a ton of freedom. Learned a lot of survival skills and how to work hard and help each other out, bootstrap things. So, uh, a fun, interesting, I guess, way to grow up.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than growing up in a city, probably, to be honest.
It was interesting. My Uber driver, not too long ago, I go to New York City often. And I said, I think there's a lot of similarities between city kids and country kids or farm kids, because it's sort of two different, completely different environments, but at the same time, it's sort of survival of the fittest. And you learn a lot of skills, certainly in different ways, but in that regard, I think there's some similarities.
So when this all goes chaotic and we're in the Thunderdome, you're going to be fine. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Well, that's good. That's good.
And there might be some tough city kids in there too. That might be fine.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, finding drinking water is usually the thing that gets people. So as long as you can, maybe just like one of those divining rods can help out with finding a well. I don't believe that that's real, but maybe it is. What do I know? So tell me about where you grew up.
So grew up on an alfalfa farm, I raised beef and hogs and 4-H to make money, sold cherries on the side of the road or at the 4-H or at the market. And I always love to share this story because I think, even though it was like, yeah, I was working as a young age, to buy basketball shoes or get the fancy clothes or whatever it was. It was almost like an education in the same regard, like learning how to be an entrepreneur, learning how to take care of yourself, personal responsibility. And I remember, as a young girl selling cherries and there would be, other cherry stands at the market. And it's like, okay, how do you sell out? It was how much cash can you get? How fast can you get it? And how fast can you get out of here to go buy your donut and count your dollars at home? And, I loved it because at a young age, we were innovating and being creative and kind of out there on our own. And I think our country's stifled that in young kids to a certain degree, but I try to keep it alive for my boys. But I remember I had regular customers and if they bought a 5-pound bag, I would make sure that they saw me grab an extra handful of cherries and put it on top. So they knew like, hey, I'm getting a little bit more here. And I would always wash the cherries the night before so people could sample them right out of my bin. So they looked prettier than all the other cherries, cherry stands that were there. So it was a unique way to grow up, I think. I didn't realize until I was older, just the value of it, the value of learning that hard work and how to make money, how to sell, how to treat customers, all of that at such a very young age, absolutely formed, just I guess my life today and what I'm able to accomplish and what I'm able to do. But We built forts in haystacks. I remember one day I went out and my steer was bloated and we had to stick a pitchfork in his side to decompress the air. I mean, to us that was normal. And now when you get out in the world and you start talking and sharing these stories, people look at you like you're crazy. But it's certainly, I'm proud of where I came from, and I'm proud of the unique experience that I was able to have.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, these days, kids get fined for having a lemonade stand without a permit, which is an odd thing. I don't know why. You would think that the last several years would have proven that the government's not good at anything.
Right.
Never has been. I don't know why. This is like the deepest, most prolonged exercise in the Gell-Mann amnesia effect that I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, wow, I sincerely don't understand why anybody would like just a normal person. Forget about politics, but just a normal person who's had to deal with, let's say, divorce or the DMV or the healthcare system, and you would take that institutional information that every human being has, and somehow people are like, yeah, I mean, like 45% of the country is like, yeah, I think the government should be in charge of this. That might be the dumbest thing that's happening in the world right now, to be honest, or at least in my world.
Yeah, 100%. I even back to my little cherry story and the farmers market. Now everything's regulated. I mean, right now my young boys couldn't walk in and do what I did back in the day, and it's like they're slowly over regulating everything. You're right. It's like our world is better when the government's not a part of it.
Yeah, I have a deep respect for Amish people in that regard, because they're just like, nah, we're not doing that. Like, I'll stick with my horse-drawn buggy and not have to deal with modernity. I guess that's like, if there's a dark and light side to things, as far as being a Luddite goes, they're probably on the light side, whereas Kaczynski would have been on the dark side. You know what I mean? So, nothing is intrinsically good or bad. You just gotta find the application that makes sense for people, I guess. But yeah, it's so weird to me that again, how bad the government is at literally everything. How often and feloniously and audaciously are wrong about things, not just like incorrect, but also immoral. And then and like continue to expect compliance from people. It's it's so wild to me. I think that's something that rubs most of establishment, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, people wrong, or rubs them wrong about Trump, because he's just so out of the box and is like, I don't really care about your systemic norms or any of this stuff. We're just going to try to get something done.
Yep. And it's refreshing. I mean, it needed to happen. Our country was absolutely headed down, like you were just saying, a bankrupt path of ruin. And I hope more and more people understand and saw that. I mean, I certainly did. When I think back to my childhood, how I grew up, the opportunities, this country, what I believed in, and just slowly see it, whether it's the American dream or whatever you want to call it, but to slowly start to see that being eroded and the fibers of it being torn. I don't even know, pick a kid out of, I don't know, junior high and ask them what the American dream is. I'd be curious to know what they would say, to be honest.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot, actually. When I think you and I are the same age, actually. When we were in high school, if you asked, no matter where in the country you were, if you asked someone what it meant to be an American, they would have an answer for it. The answers may have been different depending on where they are, what their background was, but they would have had an answer. And I don't know that most kids even think about that anymore.
Right.
Which is bad, I mean, one of the things about people have conflated nationalism and national pride with zealotry or fascism or something. I don't understand. Well, I mean, I know why they're doing it because they're fucking Marxists that are trying to poison the well. But pretty much everything in human psychology says that being proud of what you're doing is a very important part of it, right? Like it goes from everywhere from the IKEA effect, where if you receive something 80% assembled and you assemble the last 20%, you experience psychologically a greater sense of ownership over that thing. Or, as G.K. Chesterton said, men didn't love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because the men had loved her, right? I mean, it's like there is a philosophic and a practical scientific version of this that's very easily understandable. And, you know, from the opposite side, it's obviously people who are bad actors are trying their best to dislodge that from the American experience now, so that people have no identity.
Right. Right. I mean, that's a troubling place to be, but I mean, I think there's still, I was on with Charles Payne not that long ago on Fox News, the business show. And I wear these camo sweatshirts sometimes. And he's like, what do we got to do? We got to put our camo sweatshirts on, like go to war. Like it's wartime, like we have to stand up and fight for those ideals, and fight for the American dream. And, what is it? What's it look like? And if we don't preserve it today, if we don't take action and do something about it today, then we won't have it. And I feel that to my core. I feel it like in my bones. It's like I have to do something. It's almost like the obligation to my country or to the ideals of preserving the American dream for the future for my boys. That I can't. I'm now at a place I cannot sit on the sidelines and watch it go by.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Back and back it up a little bit too, because how did you originally get involved in politics, or just tell me your story from graduating high school to adulthood, I guess, and fill in those gaps a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, never in a million years did I ever think I would have to be involved in politics or, engaged at the level that I am. I'm happy to, and it's fun and it's been awesome. But, growing up on a farm, my parents just wanted us to get a degree. Like that was so important at that point. It was like that was the pathway to the American dream, was to get a 4-year degree and go on to higher level education. And I wanted to help people. So I went to, I got my bachelor's in science and nursing. I was the first in my family to graduate with a degree. It was like a really big deal. And in some ways it was like, I felt like, wow, this is the American dream. Like there is nothing that can stop me. This is amazing. So much opportunity. I just remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I can do so much in this world. And that all changed very quickly at a young age. I got married to my high school sweetheart. He went to the United States Military Academy. So 2003, 2004, we were well at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we got married. I always joke, if emojis existed back then, we would have had all the heart eyes and smiley face emojis. It was a picture of the American dream. You had a nurse, a newly graduated infantry officer from the United States Military Academy. My new last name was Smiley. It was a picture of the American dream. And all of that came to a halt very quickly. So in 2005, I was working as a nurse. My husband was deployed. He was in Iraq. I was working as a nurse and received a call about 4 a.m. that totally changed our life, like blew it up into a million pieces. And certainly it was the reason that I realized that I had to get involved in politics. But when I picked up the phone on this sunny morning in April, I thought it was going to be my husband's voice, but it wasn't. It was someone else's. And, through the phone, this commanding officer actually sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and cried to me and said that Scotty had been hit by a suicide car bomb in Mosul, Iraq, that there was shrapnel in his face, his head. He had flatlined several times. We don't know if he's going to make it, and then hung up the phone. So my world blew into a million pieces. I resigned from my nursing job. I took a one-way flight out to Walter Reed Army Medical Center. I didn't know if I was going to greet my husband dead or alive, or what I was going to get. But what was so awful for me was to see how the government treated our catastrophically injured veterans and their families. Thank God I was a nurse and a trained advocate, and I knew how to fight and I knew how to get him better. I knew I could help him. That took everything out of me, literally, like everything. I had student loan debt. I had a car payment. I now had resigned from my job. And I had the VA and the government coming at me, telling me that they knew the best way. And, in those days, I remember walking the halls and like it was actually really overwhelming and gave me, like, to a certain degree, like I wanted to help and knew I couldn't. And that's like a horrible feeling. But I would walk the halls and I would think, who's standing up for everyone else? Like, I can do this. I can help Scotty, but who's helping everyone else? And I'll never forget it. It was a day, end of April 2005, at the old Walter Reed in Washington, D.C., and a team of doctors, VA officials, Army, DOD officials brought me into a room. They had a stack of paperwork. They said, Mrs. Smiley, you have power of attorney for your husband. And he was in a coma and couldn't move the left side of his leg. He was alive, but not coherent. He had lost both of his eyes, so it'd be clear he'd never see again. And they said, so you just sign right here on the dotted line and we'll get your husband out of active duty military. We'll get him into the VA and we'll find him a facility that can take on his care. And I said, wait a minute, I have a lot of questions, like how much money is he going to make? What's his retirement? What's his health care? What does this look like? And it didn't make sense. They couldn't answer a lot of my questions. So I looked at them and I said, no, I'm not signing your paperwork. The room went quiet and I think they thought I was like crazy or, just in an emotional state. So they said, well, Mrs. Smiley, we don't think you fully understand, but your husband has no eyes. He will never see again. There has never been someone to continue on active duty blind, so you have to sign this paperwork. And I said, no. I knew they couldn't make me sign it. I believed in a better path and a better way, and so I refused to sign that paperwork. I put it in a drawer, and I haven't seen it to this day, but it gave me time to build a coalition of people around me who believed in something better as well, and I forged a whole another path for my husband. And I mean, to this day now, the government has allowed catastrophically injured veterans and their families to continue on active duty to a certain regard, but hundreds have been able to do it now. And I didn't know it at the time, all I was standing up for. But, once again, I always say, we do live in the greatest country on this earth because what other country could you stand up to the DOD and the government and say, I'm not doing this, there has to be a better way, and able to fight for it and do it? I don't know any other country. So although it was difficult and the government does mess up everything on really big levels, I'm also proud that I was able to do and forge a way for my husband and so many others in a positive way.
Yeah, it's a good observation. I think it's lost on people a lot when we talk about the American spirit, I guess, or one of the checks and balances that the public has with government is just saying no, and collectively saying no as well. We've seen a couple of examples of it that have gone in different directions, I guess. Three primary ones. The first is what we accepted when it came to lockdowns and shit like that was fucking stupid. And I guess the second one is, the mixed response from the vaccine, where a lot of people took it to keep their position or to gain access or whatever it is, and a lot of people said no and paid the price for it. And then on the better side, I would say, was the governance disinformation board, or disinformation governance board, whatever the fuck that stupid shit was called, with Homeland Security, and that just ghoulish, awful woman who, by the way, works for the British government, censoring people now. That's her job, by the way. But all of America pretty much said, no, we're not doing that. And it went away, like pretty much immediately. You know what I mean? So it's a good observation to not just to, pat ourselves on the back for the great country we live in, but to see what your individual and collective power is against some of this stuff. It's like resistance is, in my opinion, a good metaphor is a star, right? So a star is nuclear fusion. It's helium and hydrogen atoms bonding, blah, 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 creating energy, and then gravity holds it all together, right? And it's a balance between the two things, and they fight constantly. And that's what the citizenry's relationship with the government is. The government wants power, it wants control, and the force exerted against that is simply saying no, right? And it's a useful exercise. And a lot of people have trouble saying no to things, even in their personal life. It's like somebody asks you something, and setting boundaries and saying no is a problem for most people for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think maybe social acceptance, but or just weakness. But when it comes to government, you can't take that chance, because if you have a habitual line stepper in your life and they keep asking and asking, eventually you can just tell them to fuck off, right? But when you're dealing with government, every time you say yes to something you shouldn't, that creates a law that now has to be repealed, and that is not an easy thing to do.
No, you're so right. And I go back to how we started, talking. It's like that grit of growing up and having to sort of fight for yourself, growing up on a farm and knowing how to get things done, and having the confidence to stand on your own 2 feet really came into play. And so I never had any engagement with government until that moment. And then I took it upon myself. I made a promise that I would come back and help everyone else. I knew I could help my husband, but that I would come back and make it right for everyone else. So in my free time, I would go to Capitol Hill and I would take meetings with anyone who would take a meeting with me. And I started to realize, sort of saw behind the curtain on a really real level. I naively, honestly, I'll be honest, like I naively went to Capitol Hill thinking like, oh, all these members are wonderful and the best of the best and the best of our country, and they're going to understand, and they're, going to like my ideas. And it was a rude awakening. And I really saw what's behind the curtain. And like you were saying, just the power. And so, it's been a unique journey, but, I kept fighting and fighting. In 2016, I was able to work with President Trump on actual reform for our veterans and their families. And, I'll never stop doing what I can to make it better for others. And I think that's the opportunity we have in our country. Like you were saying, like, the lockdowns and everything that we went through. I hope my kids, having experienced those moments, that it will make them stronger, that it will give them the grit to stand up in the future and say no, whether it's the government or in their personal life or whatever it is, but say no and stand on their own 2 feet. And not only that, I think be driven by a passion to make it better for other people. Like, we're not just solo entities in this world. Like, we have each other. If we can leverage it and work together, really amazing things can happen. I've seen it in my personal life. I've seen it in the work I've been able to do in the government. And it sounds fluffy, but it's a real thing. And the more we can do it, and the more, we collectively use our voices, we can make massive changes and for the good.
Yeah, power is attractive to most people. Because it probably has in the beginning as a response to feeling powerless, and that's a big problem when it comes from that place. But to some people, it's intoxicating, and the latter group is primarily who you see in government, not just elected officials, but bureaucrats. I think it's probably worse with bureaucrats, as a matter of fact. These people that think they're entitled to a 30-year job and a pension on the taxpayer dime is that's quite a way to go through life, to be honest. the country owes you something. I mean, imagine applying that logic to anything else in your life. Let's say your personal relation, your marriage. Oh, well, my spouse owes me this, so I'm going to get it. I'm like, okay, well, good fucking luck with that, bud. that one's going to go away pretty quickly, or you're just going to hate each other. But an even more visceral version of that, in my opinion, one that really is indicative of how stupid that ideology is a physical object. Let's say your house, right? You spend a lot of time in your house. Well, I expect my house to do this. Well, my house isn't cool right now. It's not. It's hot inside. What the hell? Like, well, did you check to make sure that things are functioning properly? Because that's your fucking job, dum-dum. You know what I mean? It's like this idea that there's some separation between responsibility and rights is basically the philosophical version of going to the support beams in your house and knocking them down with a sledgehammer. It's fucking stupid. And we've convinced ourselves that this is the best idea. Well, I'm important. Look at how important I am. You know what I mean? Like, no, you're not. What you do is important. You as a person are just a meat sack running around. You know what I mean? Until you activate your potential, until you turn potential energy into kinetic energy and make something happen, then you're just a meat sack. You're an NPC. You know what I mean? So this is something that we desperately need to get away from. And I you know, to be fair, I'm sure you see this with your children too. But this younger generation is doing quite a bit better than the one between ours and theirs, frankly.
No, it is, but you also have to look at like what they've faced, and you know, hard times they'll either make you better and stronger, or you know, it's a choice. It's truly a choice. Like I even think back, like I didn't have to go to Capitol Hill. I had a choice to sign that paperwork or not. I had a choice to show up. I had a choice to believe that something could be better than what I was seeing, and so I hope. Like my kids that I'm seeing is I hope, yeah, they face some hardships or have had to go through these hard things, but that's not always a bad thing. Like we can't look at hard things or bad things as the end or as that's the choice now I have to accept. You have to be able to rise above and take action. And I think that, you know, that's what, for me, I guess that's what the American dream is. It's not easy. It's not something that's handed to you. It's something that's been hard, that you've had to work for, that built grit in you, that you were challenged and you rose above, and maybe you took a few steps back, but then you came back smarter and better and stronger. That's what I hope like the generation of my kids brings to the table and brings to this country, because you know, gone are the days where life is easy. I'm sorry. Like as much as like, I guess we're, you know, like you were saying, like just humans walking around, as much as we just want that, it's just not reality to being a productive individual in the future. And not just that, but just making it better. It's going to take grit and hard work and tough times. Tough times are good.
Yeah. I mean, you know, just generally speaking, you can control two things in your life, your attitude and your effort. And if either one of those things is lacking, your life is going to be lacking as well. And, you know, people that have served in the military know this. And not just the military, but first responders or even just any part of a team where the consequences are high. It isn't just your life that you're putting in danger by being a lazy piece of shit. You know what I mean? It is everybody else's life, and that's what matters. I mean, we are biologically designed to serve each other. Every meaningful thing you do in life will be in the service of other people. It's why our long-term pleasure centers are activated more by service than they are by doing things for ourselves. The short-term stuff, dopamine, will activate when you're doing stuff for yourself, like searching for food, for example, because it's a short-term problem. But building civilization, which is what we were designed to do, activates oxytocin, it activates serotonin, and so on. And this is physiological proof of the philosophical underpinning of human society. What we're meant to do is to build walls around our people, right, so that these existential threats are no longer. or at least manageable. And the American dream is having a chainsaw, looking at trees, and saying, you know what, I can fucking build this house, and nobody can stop me. But we've taken our foot off the gas in a lot of ways, and allowed more and more bureaucracy, this insane regulation. I mean, there's so many examples of it.
Out of
But
control.
yeah, the stuff that's going on in Los Angeles, trying to rebuild after these fires. I'm a big believer in Hanlon's razor. Don't imply malice where incompetence will suffice, and I think a great deal of it is incompetence. But there's also a level of incompetence that implies malice in these situations. Like you build this red tape either to shake people down for more money, or you build it to keep people from doing stuff. It's one of the two things, right? So either way, in my opinion, those are immoral activities done by the government. It's none of your fucking business what I'm going to do, actually. And if somebody wants to engage with me, then that's their choice. That's kind of how life works. I just these people that pine for things like, oh, what if the FDA didn't exist? How would this or this or this? I'm like, because we have the internet, fuckface. The first time somebody sells something that hurts somebody, they're going to get blown the fuck up and their business is going to go away. What are you talking about? It's not 1860 anymore.
Right. Or go grow your own food. How about that concept?
That seems like a reasonable thing to do, to be honest.
I know it does. We do as much as we can. My boys raise hogs, which is great. And we do what we can. We've had chickens before, but I just think it's important that they understand, the full picture, survival. And I want to make a point too. I think in this country, women in leadership, whether it's in the government or outside, like I love what I get to do now. And never in a million years did I dream I would be getting to do this. But being a strong woman is sometimes hard. But I like to share and paint the picture that men are awesome, women are awesome, and when we work together, we're actually unstoppable on so many regards. Like women are naturally wired to hedge against protection for the future. It's just how we think, it's how we're wired, and it's a good thing. And I love using that in business. I love using it in politics. I love using it when I'm sitting down on national media, that my perspective is valuable. And it's a perspective that's different maybe than the man sitting next to me, but honoring that women can look further into the future and know the moves to make right now to ensure that protection in the future. It's a gift. And I wish more women had the confidence to use it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've got to get beyond this idea that equality means that everybody's literally the same. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
It just seems like such a silly. I mean, it's just Marxism, to be honest, but it seems so silly that people would even accept something like that, because, and it's a good intellectual exercise to, when you hear a new idea, take it to its most extreme logical conclusion, because that's where it's going to go eventually, right? Back in the 90s, people were talking about, and even in the early 2000s, people were talking about, well, if you allow this, then people are going to start trying to change or say that men are like women. People are going to start trying to justify relationships with children and blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, no, that's slippery slope arguments, blah, 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 nonsense. It's like, all right, cool, man. Well, it happened. So I guess maybe now it's on you to fix this problem, right? Because I think that it is very incumbent upon human beings. And look, I didn't invent this. It's in the Bible. You should definitely tend to your own garden before you complain about the overgrowth in someone else's, I guess. I'm using a different metaphor, but the story's the same. It's like, if you are a member of the gay community, you should have handled this before it ever fucking happened. And this is on you, because it didn't happen. Like, you didn't take care of this. And in the same regard, all these, so-called Republican people, and I'm talking about voters, not politicians, because politicians are shitbags for the most part. But all of these voters just accepted whatever, like, this is my team is R, and whatever they say, I accept. Well, it's like, no, that's not an ideology. That's a cult. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you either
Right.
believe in things or you don't. Like, I keep hearing these people talk about how I'm a Reagan Republican. I'm like, oh, so you want to raise taxes and let all the illegals in and do away with no fault divorce, and I'm sorry, institute no fault divorce, and what was the other big one? Get rid of the insane asylums and shit like that. So that's the kind of Republican you are, because it's not. That's not a Republican in any meaningful way. So why don't we back it up a little bit and start with principles and not people, because we're not fanboying over people here. We're supposed to be angling ourselves towards a true North Star, not a person.
Yep. Yep. But identity politics has really swept up the country in a way that has led us to that path. But it's like, I think in some regards that is why Donald Trump won and did so well, is he forced people to think on their own 2 feet. And he was different. He wasn't this identity politics. He was like, I am who I am. I almost got killed doing this. I almost lost my life fighting for this country and standing up. And it just really painted a picture that, we, like, thank goodness the American people were smart and we bailed ourselves out in this election. But it has to be based on something bigger than ourselves, and it has to be based on something bigger than just some like you're saying, fanboy or someone who you identity politics. Like, it's so much deeper than that. And I hope and it stems back to our education system. Our kids, like, they have to be being educated and understanding the roots of this country and understanding the base of this country. Is just not happening in our schools right now. That's probably a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I mean, just goes back to the beginning of our conversation, thinking on your own 2 feet and having the ability and the grit and the fight and the confidence to say no or to question ideas and find your own and step forward and make a difference. But I'm just so glad that, like, I have hope in our country, like renewed kind of hope in the people that maybe we are getting back to that. Maybe we are getting back to educating ourselves and understanding and working harder for something bigger than ourselves. That's my hope. And I think we have an opportunity in these next 4 years and, to establish that for generations to come.
Yeah, it's funny to me, really funny, with the whole Trump thing, because he's been saying the same thing for 40 years in the public, like literally the same. You can. There's some phrases that he still uses from back then with regard to trade and immigration specifically, right? Those two things hasn't changed in any meaningful way when it comes to ideology or delivery. He doesn't give a fuck about being polished necessarily. And he's gone from beloved, where Oprah's like, you should run, it sounds like presidential talk, to hated and Nazi, whatever the fuck. It's like, man, I don't know what that says about the American people, to be honest, how easily duped they are. Or certainly it's the best example of how nobody actually believes in principles, right? It's just they're just obsessed with pop culture, I guess, right? And that is what it is. And to your other point about this, there is this new proclivity people have to go, quote unquote, do their own research, which is great, right? Because the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. And I don't mean just as an individual, but we as a collective group. If there is this operating premise that we all have, and somebody's like, well, wait a minute, this isn't technically true, or it's in this space, what you just said, I know it's true over here, but it's not actually true here, so we have to figure this part out. That's a very valuable thing for people. However, having a shared epistemology is very important. It's a big part of having a shared culture, actually, and which is the linchpin of a civilization. And now that the average person that you see pontificating on social media is a fucking idiot. And 25 or 30 years ago, that dude would have just been talking to 3 of his friends, and they would have been like, oh, because they would have been 20% dumber than him. And they're like, oh, that's fucking blah, 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 or whatever, and it would have ended there. But now these people will amass thousands and thousands of followers who listen to what they're saying and believe it, because there's so much distrust in institutional journalism and media and the government and science, right? Whether it's physical sciences or economics, there's so much distrust in that now people are like, if you can make a convincing enough argument, it doesn't matter if it's factually true or not. That's where we are right now. There's a great danger in that, right? I mean, it breeds bad ideas, and bad ideas in mass lead to chaos, whether it's economic chaos or cultural chaos. And we're experiencing both to some degree right now.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I certainly, I take some heat for going on CNN or NBC but at my core, that is my mission, is to speak truth to power in those places. And if I wasn't there doing it, who is doing it? I guess we could all say like, yeah, walk away from it. It doesn't matter. But I think it does matter, what we've experienced in the media. And it's an opportunity to get it back to those authentic voices, those voices of truth, where it's reporting on facts versus feelings, or versus my party versus your party, us versus them. That's certainly what I try to do, whether I'm on Fox News or NBC or CNN, wherever I'm at. Is really speak that truth to the power and show the authentic voice of America. I understand I'm not a voice for everyone, but I am a authentic, truthful voice that tries to bring that every single time I'm on legacy media.
Yeah, there's a few, like you and Batia Ungersargen, she's a good friend of mine, go into the Lion's Den on a pretty regular basis and calmly explain your positions. And then there's Scott, who's he's also very calm, but he's almost a meme at this point, just from the eye rolls and you can read it on his face. It's like in the South, if somebody says bless your heart, that means you're an idiot, right? And that's what Scott's face says most of the time when he's doing hits on CNN. Just the ability to point out how goofy and wrong some of these things, like just some of the stuff that's been said about the economy was doing well we didn't know that Biden was functionally retarded, or God, MSNBC is the worst. That's like, to me, that's like watching cartoons. When I watch that, it's like when what was her name, Joy Reid, said that, I don't understand, Kamala ran a flawless campaign. She spent $2 billion in 2 months. A flawless campaign, she would have won 90% of the vote. What are you talking about? Just like stuff like that, and there's different ways to go about it. I think a big part of comedy historically has just been, holding power to truth. You know what I mean? Like what you're saying is ridiculous, and we're going to satirize it and show you exactly how ridiculous it is, which Scott does a really good job of. You guys are a little bit more calm and just like pointing it out. But this is and always has been the purpose of media, in my opinion. If you think about media, historically, you had 2 versions. You had state-run media, which is the town crier. Somebody told him to go say exactly what he was supposed to say. And then there's Shakespeare, who was subversive. You know what I mean? I don't know how that motherfucker survived, to be honest, because he was a part of the royal court and just made fun of them all the time. It's certainly one of the more interesting human beings, I think. But that's kind of like the point of the media used to be. Hey, you guys, like we're not here to propagandize people. We're here to, kind of say whether, like, here's what the politician said, here's some context to it, and now you can make up your own mind. I did always think, though, that the beginning of the end in a lot of ways was Cronkite taking a side on Vietnam. I thought that was inappropriate for somebody in the media to do. If you're a commentator, that's one thing, but as the host of the biggest news show that exists, your job is to report the facts. And I don't know that is a position that even exists in America anymore. Who is there? Somebody out there that just reports facts? Because I don't know of anyone.
Catherine Herridge.
Who's that?
She's Catherine Herridge. She's pretty amazing. She was the one investigating Hunter Biden, had all of her files seized, and was fired. But she, investigative reporter, reports the facts, the truth, whether you like it or not, you know. But she's on X and has her own program now. She's definitely someone to follow. I've known her for many years and respect her work deeply, like years ago. And then to see what she's gone through now, and to see her out there still fighting and still holding the journalism, right, badge that, like, I was taught it's a noble profession. And she's still holding that regard.
It's good. I'll check. I mean, I know who she is, but not a huge follower, obviously. I mean, she's definitely has some big platforms. You said she has her own show now?
On X.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So she has some good shows. And, you know, I mean, exactly what you're talking about. I think the failure for our country, for our service members, was the failed departure in Afghanistan. We never got the truth. We still don't have the truth. I mean, I like, the images are horrific, like people hanging on the side of our aircraft, service members being killed. I mean, absolute failure on our part as a country and a failure on the world stage. You know, someone asked me the other day, like, oh, how is Trump going to clean up this Ukraine war? And there's this and there's that. And I always bring it back. Trump was left this mess. He didn't create this. The failed departure in Afghanistan, that we still don't have the truth, or we still don't have the facts. I don't know. Were generals fired? Who took responsibility for it? No one even knows. But that failed departure showed the world how weak we truly were. Emboldened the evils in this world. And now we're in a place where we have to go clean it all up. But there are still facts that need to be reported from that failure.
Like what kind of stuff would you, what questions do you have about it specifically? Because everybody's got a bit of a take on it. There's a call. I mean, I've got some in my mind for sure.
Well, number one, to me, it seemed just like a PR stunt. And it's like, okay, so in our media world today, right, you can do whatever you want and then pitch it as, you know, whatever. I think Biden needed a win. He needed to get out of there. And then they did this whole PR tour that everything is good and we ended the war in Afghanistan. Well, that's not really what happened. So I'm curious what was their plan and their agenda. And I want to know who, like, why did no one say this is not going to work? Or why did no one stop it? That's also a question.
You mean generals and stuff, because they were more than happy to resign under Trump. But when Biden asked General Milley, who, by the way, I think should be in prison, what he should do about Bagram, or what he should do about Afghanistan, they pulled out of Bagram in the middle of the night without telling the Afghan president. And I'm not sure what they thought was going to go on there. I mean, the entire thing was a lie. So
right. So where's the facts? I guess, like, who decided this was good?
Yeah, it's interesting because the general or the public statements from the Biden administration were something to the effect of, we didn't realize that the city would get over, or the state, or the country would get overrun this quickly. And this is in August, once they announced they were going to leave and blah, blah, blah. From March until August, the Taliban went from controlling no territory in the country to about 45% of the country. They knew this just like everybody else did. Open source intelligence was reporting it on Twitter the whole time. And certainly the federal government knew it. The DOD knew it. The State Department knew it. And Biden, if he knew anything, I guess, hard to say with that guy, but he certainly would have been aware of it. Were he conscious? That's debatable. But so Milley's plan was, or his recommendation, and followed through by Austin, was to remove our air superiority from the area. And then by the time we started that withdrawal, it was about 65% of the country was under Taliban control. And then we were forced to make a deal with the Taliban to set up checkpoints around the perimeter. And what did they do? Let suicide bombers in. Of course. Are you kidding me? You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like,
I'm not even in the military. I can tell you
yeah,
that. I mean, that doesn't take someone
yeah,
obvious, right?
yeah.
Like,
And then our response to that was to, by the way, the suicide bomber, we were tracking on that guy. JSOC had him. They were going to drop a bomb on him, and they were told no. I have people from multiple tier 1 units told me that, different tier 1 units, dudes that don't know each other. And instead we wait a week and drop a bomb on 10 civilians, including 7 children, and just murder them. It's like, all right, cool, I guess
yeah,
we got them. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm, as an infantry guy, I don't want the press getting involved in my business.
right,
It's none of your fucking
right,
business what I do out there. Like, I'm there
right.
you can tell me. This is from a video game, actually, but I love this line. You can tell me when and where, but you cannot tell me how. It's my job to decide how to fight on the ground. However, when it's the upper echelons of government making decisions that put people at risk unnecessarily and also damage the mission and our global reputation, somebody has to be held to account. And I
Yes.
haven't heard anything from the Trump administration so far about holding any of these people to account. Why haven't they recalled and court-martialed these guys? I don't understand.
That's actually a good point. And I might ask around. I wouldn't be surprised if they are investigating and digging into it, to be honest. It's just there is so much going on right now in our country and in the news. And the first 100 days were certainly fast and robust and furious, and rightfully so, because that's just the state of the country that Trump walked into, was utter chaos. People like to say, "Oh, it's chaos right now." It's like, no, it was chaos. Like, Trump walked into chaos
Mm,
on every level, from our open southern border, our national defense, um, our economy, our education system, boys and girls sports. I mean, every single layer of our lives, um, we're headed down a very dark path. So I would I would bet that they are looking into it, and that they will come out with facts, and hopefully acknowledge and hold to account those that need to be.
okay. Well, let's hope so. And then the other part is the deportations are not going as planned, frankly, and it's not because of the courts. It's at our current pace. It's going to take us 58 and a half years to deport all the illegal aliens that came in over the last 4 years, which is completely unacceptable. And I'm like, I've talked to people about this. I like Homan. He's a fucking
Yeah,
pit bull, that guy.
I love him.
But
Our country is so lucky to have him, fighting on the front lines, and again, another person who speaks truth to power to the press and does not let them take headlines and run with it. He's amazing, and we are blessed to have him fighting and working for our country.
yeah, well, I mean, I won't say that we need him to work harder because he's one man, but something else, something has to be done here. I mean,
Yeah.
this is untenable. I mean, certainly somebody who works in politics, as you do, knows this. But packing all these illegal immigrants into major cities and turning one blue district into two is a math that happened in California back in the 1970s, and it turned it blue forever, and is unacceptable. Like, that cannot happen. So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what Congress does anymore, aside from make speeches. They haven't voted on any meaningful legislation probably since Obamacare, and that kind of fucked everybody over. So I wonder, from your perspective, if you were in Congress right now, what would you be trying to do?
I'd probably be a caged animal, to be honest. It's so slow and such a grind, but they have an opportunity coming up now, with securing the border. They have, Trump's big, beautiful bill. I don't know if they'll get the whole thing. But what I would advocate for, what I would be fighting for, is actual permanent protections at our border, and making sure that we got that over the line. You can extend the tax cuts and wait and do those and make them permanent, down the road. But I think the priority for me, if I was in there right now, would be absolutely permanent protections on our southern border, and funding it and making sure that they have everything that they need, from technology to manpower, weapon systems. that's what needs to be done. I mean, Trump has really taken the lead and in stopping. I mean, look at where illegal immigration is now. Like he stopped it. And now it's Congress's job to permanently protect that for the American people.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this is generally the case, especially in a contentious election cycle. But you win the presidency, and you've got somewhere between 6 and 18 months to actually govern. Usually closer to 6, because sometime in September, people are going to start running for re-election in Congress, or in the House at least. I guess they're a third of the Senate as well, but mostly the House will be running for re-election, and you're not going to get any compromises then. You know, there's not going to be any major legislation. It's very rare, and even in a midterm election year, that you get meaningful legislation passed. So it would be nice if Republicans would do something and codify literally anything into law. They've done absolutely nothing so far.
Yeah. Well, they have an opportunity coming up. So
what's that opportunity? Explain.
For the bill, the Trump's bill to the border, they can, like I was saying, I don't think they're going to get the whole big, beautiful bill that President Trump wants, but I think there are subsets in it that they can absolutely fight for and you know, win on. So we'll see how well they do. I know Speaker Johnson, it's like herding cats, but it would be nice to see that get done.
And what are you aware of any kind of threats of primaries and things like that? I mean, is there any, like, what leverage is being applied to these people? Because it's been a while, and decades even. Like, this isn't a new thing to this term.
Yeah.
Like, here's a good example. So while from 2013 through 2017, Republicans voted something like 60 times in the House to repeal Obamacare, knowing they didn't have the votes. And then in 2017, they had 2 votes on it, one in April and one in June, I believe. Or maybe it was September, but one in the early part of the year, one in the latter part of the year.
Right.
And 7 and 9 Republicans, respectively, voted against it and shot the repeal down. So when they had the votes, they decided not to do what they said that they were going to do. So, I mean, it's very difficult to take these people seriously, frankly.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And I think really we need to get back to a place where there's fresh blood. You know, the 2-year terms was technically supposed to be the term limits, but it's turned into, like we were talking about earlier, a power grab and a money grab, and they get insulated. And then they pretty much secure their seat for however long they want it. You know, originally, I think our founding fathers wanted the teacher or the doctor or the farmer. Every 2 years, you have someone going back with a new perspective who has the energy and can get things done. And they're not worried about how much money they're raising or or securing their reelection. But that's just where it's at now. You know, there is a bill that I just saw I think it was Senator Hawley presented or brought back up, was the Pelosi Act. And something that I am very passionate about is, I think, number one, we need to make it more public on who is insider trading and what are their votes and do they compare. And it should be, I mean, we can look it up, but you know, Americans are busy, they're living their lives. It needs to be more out front and obvious to the American people who is insider trading and what are they trading and what are their votes. And I think that is something I would love to see. I would love to see it stopped in Congress. I don't think it should be there. It shouldn't be allowed at all.
Yeah, is there somebody specifically you want to call out?
Well, I do know from my home district. So where I was born and raised, obviously I'm in Washington State, which is they're so far left, continue to be. I'm calling them out on it, which is good. But anyways, my district is a very conservative district, very Republican district. And we have a congressman who made $800,000 a couple years ago on insider trading and failed to report it. So he had to, like, I don't know, they like slap him on the hand or like say, you have to report this. And I just think, like, what a disgrace. Like, if you're going to do that, then come back to your district and tell your constituents that you're doing that. And then tell us why you vote the way you do. Like, or let's just stop it. Let's get the Pelosi Act out there
Yeah.
and prevent members from insider trading.
Sure. I mean, Robin Williams had a good idea. It's like they should wear NASCAR uniforms with all their sponsors' logos on them, so we can see exactly who they work for. Because
Yes.
sure
So
as shit
anytime
it's
you
not
see
the
them on
American
TV
people.
or they're speaking on the floor, it's just right there. It's obvious.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, maybe somebody can develop an AI app for that just makes an overlay showing their sponsors, because they sure as shit aren't working for the American people. Well, look, this has been very interesting. Enjoy watching you on the news sometimes, and hopefully things are going well up there in Washington. Or are you actually in Washington State right now, or are you in DC?
I'm in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Gross.
I go between the two Washingtons.
Yeah, one's clearly better. But thanks
Out in the real
for
world.
yeah, thanks for going into the Lion's Den and challenging these people on the stupid shit they try to push on people. Tell everybody where they can find you and find all your work.
Yes, so on social media, I'm on there as Tiffany M. Smiley. Follow along. I'm on national media. You can cheer me on. But, like I was saying, I just want to speak truth to power and be a change agent for this country. And so would love to have people tune in. Watch me, follow me on my social media channels. I always post on there when I'm going live. I do, 2 or 3 news hits a day. So would love to continue the conversation.
Great. Well, I appreciate you coming today. Thank you very much. Everybody go check her out. Tiffany Smiley, spelled the way that you think that they are spelled. I think if you can't figure that one out, you may have bigger problems. Yeah, thanks again for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.